Welcome to Fishing the 262. In today's episode, we are going to start video 1 of a 4-part series about making bass jigs. And each one is going to take us a little bit further down the wormhole in terms of costs and supplies that you may or may not need to do this. The genesis for this series comes from a direct message that I received from a young high school angler on one of the other social media platforms. This guy wanted to make some jigs. He was really into the idea of making his own jigs. He just doesn't have a lot of money to get started. So anytime a young angler wants to get into tackle crafting, I'm here for it and I want to help him out. So this video today is going to be like a 100 level course on making jigs. It's going to be the most cost-effective way to make what I would call a semi-custom jig with very minimal startup costs. So first we're going to run through what you're going to need. We're going to build a jig, and then we're going to talk about the costs. So what exactly are we going to need? First and foremost, we're going to need some jig heads. And at this stage of the game, we are just starting out. We are not investing in equipment. These are pre-poured jig heads from fishingskirts.com. You click on Shop Boss. You can buy them in 10 packs. This one is called the Destroyer. It is a 7/16 ounce jig. I like to fish somewhere between 3/8 and a half ounce most of the time, so I thought this would be a good one to start on. The great part about these jigs is I look at this, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but they've done all the prep work. There's no sanding, no nothing required. This jig is ready to paint right out of the package, so pretty cool deal there. Lots of different shapes. If this isn't your flavor, that's okay. They have ball heads, football heads, swim jigs, you name it. There's a shape probably going to meet one of your needs. So we're going to need the jig heads first and foremost. You are going to need a heat source, like this heat gun right here. We're not going to use that for the purposes of this video. We're going to use my alcohol torch. I'm going to get that lit right away so that flame can come up a little bit, and we'll be ready to paint. Speaking of paint, you're going to need some paint. We are going to use Stardust for this application. The reason we're using Stardust is because we're on a budget. We don't have a lot of money. We don't want to bake jigs in our wife's or our mom's oven. So we're going to use Stardust because we don't need anything other than water to cure this paint job. So Stardust is really great when you're just starting out. I've got just a little miniature solo cup full of water here ready to go. We are going to need, and this is optional. I like this option though. These are Teflon base pins. Those just plug into the hole right there where your weed guard goes. That's going to save you some drilling later on. And you're going to need some pre-made skirts for this, also available from fishingskirts.com. Really great way to go. And this is kind of, again, why I'm calling this a semi-custom jig, because we don't have total control over the colors of the strands. With that said, there's just about any kind of color you could want, from your green pumpkins to your browns, all the way into your black and blues, your shad patterns, your bluegill patterns, you name it. They've got a pattern for you. So this is a great way to get started again, you guys. And that's what this is about. It's about getting started in the hobby. So the last thing we're going to need is actually 2 more things. I stand corrected. You're going to need a pack of weed guards, also from fishingskirts.com. And then I like to use shrink tube. This is, I believe, 1/16 of an inch in the shrink tube. I just like a really clean hook eye. This is, again, strictly optional. You do not have to take this step. So we're just going to cut a little slice off, and I don't even know if you can hardly see that. And we're going to slide that over the hook eye. That's just going to keep the paint from getting in our hook eye. It's going to look just like this. Get that to focus. We're ready to paint. So we're going to crack the lid on our Stardust. I happen to have a little paintbrush laying around here. We're just going to fluff that up really nice, you guys. Nothing complicated about this. Stardust will not work in a fluid bed, so it's just too heavy. This is a little denser than your traditional powder coat. So now we're going to heat our jig. I'm off camera a little bit. I'll try to hold that up so you guys can see it. This will take a little bit maybe longer than the heat gun would take. But again, when I'm shooting a video, this is a great way to go. It's also late at night. It's probably almost 1 in the morning. I worked late tonight. So we're going to hold that in the flame for just a few more seconds here, and that should be ready to dip. And we're going to go ahead and give that a swirl, knocking off our excess into the can. At this point, we can go ahead and we can remove our Teflon pin. And carefully here, go ahead and remove your shrink tubing. That's going to be relatively hot, so just watch yourself on that. Now, one of the things, let me get this flame out of the way. You're going to notice, I don't know if that'll show up great on camera or not, but that's fairly grainy. It looks almost sandy at this point. So in order to smooth that out, we're just going to return it to the heat. And we're going to roll that around until that finish smooths out. And it'll take just a minute. If it starts to smoke, you're too hot. It's not the end of the world if it smokes. You just don't want to get it excessively hot. And we're starting to level that finish out a little bit. We're just going to keep that thing moving until that's completely smoothed out. And once we get there, we will dunk it into our water. Not quite there, but we're getting close. Got one little rough area here. I want to try to get that smoothed out. This doesn't have to be 100% perfect, you guys. It just has to smooth out enough to cure. And I'm not too concerned about what's going on down here on the collar of the jig because that's not going to be super visible anyway. So I think we're about there. So all we're going to do now, I'm going to try to be quiet. You guys may or may not hear this sizzle on camera. We're going to give that a dunk. And that's it. We're done with that. We'll set that off to the side for right now. I pre-painted one before I started filming so that we could go right into putting the skirt on without having to wait for it to cool. Our fire is extinguished. Put the cap back on our Stardust paint. Again, Stardust is really great for the reason you just saw there. We don't have to bake this jig. It's ready to go. So here's how it looks now that it's all cured. You can see it's much shinier. It doesn't have that grainy appearance to it anymore. It's going to be awesome. So we have our pre-made skirt. If you look at these skirts when they're pre-made, you'll notice that this side right here by my finger is slightly longer. We are going to orient that side up, and I'm just going to kind of smooth out these tabs as best I can. I want to try to get this as even as I can to give me a nice balanced skirt package. And it's not going to be 100% perfect, you guys, but take a little bit of time to spread this material out so that you get a pretty even distribution around the jig. Once you have everything where you want it, we're pretty good right here. I don't know if this will show up on camera or not, but I've just kind of spread everything out around the collar like so. From here, real quickly, we're just going to take our hook. We're going to try to thread it right down through the middle, like so. We're going to come up. We got to get over the bait keeper right there, and then we've got to get over this collar. So the bait keeper first, and then the collar second. And again, we want that skirt to be as evenly distributed as possible. So we're going to just continue to manipulate those strands around just a little bit. Get up over that bait keeper. And then I'm going to use 2 fingers to get up over the collar. Takes a little bit of manipulation, but it's not too terrible. And there you go. That skirt is on place. It's fairly evenly distributed around the jig. I feel pretty good about that jig, you guys. I would take this thing fishing tomorrow if I could go fishing tomorrow. So there you have it. There's your skirt, pretty much ready to go. The only thing left to do now is glue in our weed guard. And this is really simple. You get 100 of these in a pack. They come in different colors. They come in black, green pumpkin. They come in brown. Some of the vendors will carry multicolored ones. I am kind of a weirdo, self-admitted weirdo. I like to try to match my weed guard to my jig head, but you could just go with a straight black if you wanted to. It doesn't have to match. Key to this is always to use gel control super glue versus the liquid. We're going to put just a little dab in there. Doesn't take much, you guys. Just like that. We're going to pop our weed guard in there. just like so. Once that super glue dries, we have a fully functional jig ready to go. 7/16 ounce. This one, again, this is called Perfect Craw, I believe. Let me check my invoice here. It is called Killer Craw. I also bought some in a color called Purple Perfection, which is a pretty cool color right there. But that jig's ready to go, you guys. So let's just break down the costs on this. We'll go with overall startup costs, and then we'll break down the cost of the actual jig. But again, you can see that thing is ready to rock and roll. Took, what, a couple of minutes? Put the top back on our super glue. We'll break down the startup costs. The jig heads, they come in packs of 10, $7. I bought 2 packs of pre-made skirts. They were $3.50 a pack, so $7 worth of skirts. The paint, the Stardust, again, I want to emphasize when you're first starting out why Stardust is so cool. You saw that I didn't have to bake this. It's about $8 a can. You can buy this at Lure Parts online, and that'll do tons of jigs. So you can get it in just about any color. You can buy as many colors or as few colors as you want, but at $8 a can, you'll get a whole bunch of jigs out of that. I don't even begin to know how many jigs you can get out of this, but I got to imagine a minimum of 100 jigs per can. Weed guards, you're going to get 100 of them in a bag like this for $6. The heat gun, I picked that up at Harbor Freight. I did go verify harborfreight.com. You can buy that exact same heat gun for 20 bucks. You are going to want to buy the Teflon base pins, and I'll show you what's really cool about these. Once you own them, you can just peel that paint almost with no effort and reuse them over and over and over again. That's like a brand new Teflon pin again. Just don't get these super hot to the point where they get flimsy, and you can use these countless times. So you can buy 10 of these for $3.45. Super glue, you can get the Loctite over at the Dollar General for about $5. So we got jig heads at $7, skirts at $7, paint at $8 a can, weed guards at $6, the heat gun at $20, Teflon base pins are optional, $3.45, and super glue at roughly $5. Total startup costs, all in, you're $56.45 to make 10 jigs. Now you're going to have weed guards, and you're going to have paint left over. The Teflon base pins are going to be reusable. You're going to have super glue to do a whole bunch of jigs. So the per jig cost on this, you guys, again, the jig head was 70 cents. The skirt was 70 cents. And the weed guard was 6 cents. Let's go crazy and say we used 4 cents worth of paint and super glue. You're into this jig for $1.50, you guys. And one thing that's also kind of neat about these pre-made skirts is if you're a person that likes a rattle, there is a place on that band to click in a rattle if you want to throw a rattle. I don't usually throw rattles on my jigs. I don't have any water that's really that dirty around me, so I've never really been a big rattle guy when it comes to jigs. But again, we're into this jig. Startup costs about $56 plus a little bit of shipping. And then each one of these jigs is going to cost you about $1.50 at the end of the day. You can't walk into Dick's Sporting Goods or Bass Pro Shops or anywhere and buy a jig for $1.50. So if you're a guy that's on a tight budget, if you're a young high school angler just looking to start out making some jigs, this is the most cost-effective way that I can show you guys how to do it. And at $1.50 a jig, it's pretty awesome, you guys. And I think you're going to find that you're going to want to go a little further down the wormhole once you start down this path. And that's what's so great about this hobby. You can spend as little or as much as you want on it. And we're going to tap into some of the more higher-end functions of this hobby as we progress down this series. Again, I think this will be a 4-video series. Just different levels of investment and different skill sets that you're going to need to make these jigs. So again, this is episode 1. This is making jigs on a budget for brand new, just starting out. Maybe you're a young angler, you're just on a tight budget. You can't beat this for $1.50, you guys. We're getting towards the 15-minute mark. We got to get out of here. I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Tight lines, everybody.